This show is brought to you by airlinegeeks.com.
American 1027 is on the visual.
American 1027 on the tower, wind 250 at 17, depth 23, calling in airplane 3 mile final, runway 18 right, clear to land.
Clear to land 18 right, American 1027.
Coming to you live from anywhere and everywhere, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Inside the Airlines. My name is Ryan. I'm the founder and owner of airlinegeeks.com. Coming to you live here from Washington, D.C., and joining me today, we have Tyler and Parker. How are you guys doing? Hey, Tyler.
Doing great, man. We have officially reached the boiling point here in Arizona. I tell you what, currently it is 6:30 p.m., and I'm pretty sure the temperature is up above 100 right now. And let me check here. Sure enough, we are at 112 at 6:30 p.m. here. And I am melting. I am seriously melting. But anyways, my name is Tyler. I'm a 6-year airline employee with experience in everything from baggage handling to customer service, ticketing agent, flight attendant. And I also do internal training operations.
And my name is Parker, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. And I'm a senior writer for airlinegeeks.com. I've been writing for the site since last August, and I've been doing aviation photography for the last 2 years.
Can you imagine what the heat would be like in Dallas at 110? I mean, it's got to be ridiculous because now keep in mind here in Phoenix, there's no humidity.
It's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat, right? No, that actually grinds my gears when people say it's a dry heat because it does get humid here. But yes, right now it is very dry. It's like an oven. You walk outside and it just feels like an oven. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. But I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like in Dallas or even in DC at 110. I mean, that's
humidity
got to be ridiculous.
The city would shut down. We'd go into apocalyptic mode.
Yeah, it's insane right now. I mean, and by the way, speaking of airlines, next week, it's Sunday, June 18th right now for those listening. But next week, it's going to be 120 plus. So we're talking about 120 degrees Fahrenheit next week. Yeah, it's going to be ridiculous. So actually, airline at Phoenix, American Airlines put out a memo saying, hey, there's going to be, with the excessive heat warning, there's going to be some travel delays and definitely maybe even some cancellations, especially with the regionals, because on a lot of these regional aircraft, their weight and balance and density charts only go up to 118 degrees Fahrenheit. So they literally cannot operate after 118, and it's forecasted right now for 121 on Tuesday of next week.
That's crazy.
121. I mean, it's ridiculous. So mainline aircraft, I think there'll be some weight and balance issues. I don't know how delayed they're going to be, but they're definitely going to have to be oversold by quite a bit. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah,
I won't be here, so I'll be working. But yeah, so I've got a flight attendant trip coming up. I'm working on next week. Tomorrow I've got recurrent training. I was talking to you guys about that. So I get to recertify to be a flight attendant with the FAA. And then I've got a 3-day trip. I do a long Los Angeles, and then I do a short Memphis layover, and then I'll be back by the end of the week.
There you go.
So that's about it. What are you guys doing this week? Anything exciting?
No, nothing too much. It's just kind of one of those weeks. One of those standard operating procedures, as you call it.
Mm-hmm. Same thing down here.
Standard ops. But seriously, though, we've got a great show for those who are just joining us. We normally talk about some exciting airline trending news stories and things like that. But also, we took a little poll, and we got over 250 responses on Twitter about what type of airline job that you would like to get, you personally. And we're going to be talking about how to be a flight attendant, how to be an airport customer service personnel working on the ground, on the ramp, and even how to be a pilot. Are you guys excited for that?
Oh, yeah. Let's see what we got.
Looking forward to it.
It'll be great. But before we get to that, we've got some awesome news stories to get to. Now, there's a lot going on in the airline world, and this is what's trending in the airline world. First of all, Mr. Ryan, there is some breaking news developments. You guys were tweeting it out on the Airline Geeks Twitter. What's going on with the A380?
Well, I think they've put together something very interesting, to say the least. they have the new a split winglet design is the way I'm classifying it in the store, and the way the Airline Geeks editors are classifying it. They're putting a new winglet on the A380 now. According to Flight Global, it's actually not really working. Like, they can't fly with it, but I don't know. So the winglet itself is 4.7 meters tall. So that's about 15 feet. Let's put that in reference for a minute. And that's in total. So it's a scimitar. So I say scimitar, but the bottom portion is 1.2 meters, 3.5, 1.2, and it's amazing. That is, let's put that in context. So it's about 15 feet in total height. And I guess that includes the bottom portion too, whatever. But the 767 winglets, which are currently the tallest on the market, are 11 feet high. So that's a big winglet.
It's a ridiculous winglet. You almost wonder what the repercussions of that are going to be. I mean, we have enough airplanes running into each other on the ground. I can't imagine.
And they're also going to be looking. Also, get this: hold on, I got to get this right. 353 seating in economy.
No, that is crazy.
No, the answer to that is no. I'm going to tell you that right now.
When they say
the answer to that is no.
When they say A380 plus, I think they mean plus more passengers.
Plus 80 seats, I think.
That's crazy.
Too much.
And they're also getting rid of those. You know how on the upper deck on the A380 there's always a storage compartment on the left and right sides, on the captain and first other side. They're giving customers the option to get rid of those if they want to put angled herringbone seats in there.
Oh, God, are these going to be the slimline seats?
Yeah. So, if Spirit is interested in packing in some sardines from Baltimore to Orlando,
what's another one? EasyJet? Is EasyJet one of them? Let's take Spirit or EasyJet, give them an A380 and see how they do.
If you buy the really cheap seats in the upper deck, you get to lean over the entire flight as the plane curves over you.
Watch Norwegian. Norwegian's going to buy onto this. They are.
They're going to buy onto those and pack people in. You could profit off of it too. I mean, you could definitely make some money.
Can you imagine working as cabin crew on that? I'm going to go ahead and say no.
They wouldn't even have service. They would probably just.
Well, the way the FAA does it, and I don't know, where this airplane's going to operate, but the way the FAA does it, I mean, you've got to have so many flight attendants per so many seats. So there's going to be at least 20 cabin crew on that plane. I mean, it has to be. There's got to be.
That's a lot of jump seats.
Exactly. It's going to be a ton of jumps. Man, what a crazy idea. But anyways, moving on. Who had this next story? This one's good. This one's a really, really good one. So we're talking about American Airlines and the 737 MAX that's coming out. Parker, I think you did a story on airlinegeeks.com about this. Is that correct?
No, this one.
Oh, sorry.
This one was not me. I don't know who did this one, but anyway, go on about the. No,
I was just going to say, so American, they came out recently and they said, hey, look, here's what we're going to do. We're getting this new 737 MAX. We're investing in new sources of in-flight entertainment. So instead of the seat backs like we have on some of our newer 73s and almost all of our 321s on the legacy American side, because as you know, American merged with US Airways. So on the legacy American side, all of the brand new Airbuses that at least have in-seat entertainment. So they've got the in-seat entertainment, they've got the power plugs, they've got the whole 9 yards. Legacy US is still catching up to this day. They're just now getting refurbished with power ports and, of course, streaming entertainment where you can watch movies free on GoGo. But American said, hey, we believe that in-seat technology is going to be dead in 3 to 4 years. So what we're going to do is we're going to invest with these new 737 MAXs in streaming entertainment, whether that be 2KU or Viasat. And that way you can have, quote unquote, the living room experience. So you'll be able to have, you can watch Netflix, HBO, live TV, watch the normal movies that you want, and surf the web, all on high-speed internet. And it doesn't matter how many people are on it, because everybody knows GoGo's nickname is Go Slow, because it is such a slow internet, because right now the way the internet works is that you ping down to the ground, and the ground sends back the bandwidth and things like that for the whatever's on the aircraft. But this is satellite based internet, so it's a lot faster, it's a lot easier to use, especially when you're in the air. There's not as many limitations, that's for sure. But on top of that, American said, we're going to go ahead and take out a row of main cabin extra, which is like their economy plus or whatever you want to call it. Each airline has their own little thing where they can upsell, because there's this new trend going on with American carriers where they are doing like 9 or 10 different classes of service within the airplane. So you've got your main cabin extra, your economy plus, where there's like 6 inches of additional legroom. Then you've got your regular economy. Then you've got your basic economy along with your first class. So American said, hey, if we take out a row of that main cabin extra, we can put in another row of coach and squeeze them together towards the back. So the last 3 rows. So that's like a 9 or 10 inch, 9 to 10, whatever it is. But so they were saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 29. Was it 29 originally, right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
yes.
29 inch. So it's 29 inch pitch is what they pitched, and the media and everybody else lost their minds. They're like, "This is ridiculous." 29 inches of pitch.
Something tells me they'll be okay.
Yeah, but it's smaller than they've been for sure. That's for sure. So 29 inches of pitch. And American said, "You know what? You're right. So here's what we're going to do. We'll meet you in the middle. Right now we're at 31 on our 7.3s for most of main cabin. We're going to meet you in the middle and give you back an extra inch and meet you at 30. So now they're going to come out with 30 inches of pitch, but they're going to be in the slimline seats with no IFE. Now, the reason why I mentioned the IFE, and excuse me, by no IFE, I mean no in-seat IFE. There'll still be in-flight entertainment like the satellite, like we talked about. But the reason why I mentioned all that is because without the little boxes that come with in-seat entertainment, the electronic boxes where they house all of the electronics for those TVs under each seat, that actually equivalates and makes you a little more inch. So you do really feel like it's like a 32-inch, seat or whatever. But that's kind of what's going on now. So American backtracked and said, we're going to meet you in the middle. We'll do it at 30, and we'll see how that goes. So I don't know. Good decision, bad decision. What do you guys think?
I think it's a great decision. I mean, it shows that more than anything else, the airline is listening to customer and team member feedback, and that's not something you see much anymore. And I think it's great that they're listening and they're willing to change their policy. And maybe they're going to be risking a few bucks, but hey, you're making customers a little bit more happy and you're getting a little better PR. And in the long run, that helps. And that's what the airlines need more than ever right now.
Purely from a passenger perspective, I mean, I think everybody would like to have that extra inch back. I mean, even if it didn't make a huge difference, I mean, I'm sure everybody would like to, be able to have that little extra legroom. I've
actually sat in those slimline seats, and I got to tell you, even though they're not the most comfortable seats, I will give them that. It really, legroom wise, it's better than the current seats that they have on their 7.3s. So, not maybe comfortability wise, but legroom wise, it's way better. If you're looking for just pure legroom, those slimline seats, if they give them back that extra inch, it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, that's true.
So we'll see how that all plays out. So shout out, kudos to American for giving us back that extra inch. We appreciate that. What's going on, Mr. Parker, in the world of Cuba?
Yeah, so earlier this week, President Trump announced changes on restrictions for travel to Cuba. I mean, it's a change to what the Obama administration had implemented in recent years. So said the main goal of his changes were to limit funds from tourists making their way to the Castro regime, while people of Cuba got very little. And I think we have some audio from CNN.com, Tyler.
The normalization of relations between the US and Cuba may be controversial. But the tourism industry and many Cuban Americans are embracing it. The loosening of restrictions on travel led to scenes few thought they'd ever see. And in the last 2 years, millions of dollars have been invested in new ventures. But President Donald Trump will announce tighter restrictions on travel, ending people-to-people exchanges and greatly increasing scrutiny on other categories. It won't mean the end of operations for airlines and cruise ships, but the administration says it wants to stop business that benefits the Castro regime.
Saludos amigos, bienvenidos a este programa Alternativa.
Orlando Gutierrez has been broadcasting to the people of Cuba for years. Like many of Miami's conservative Cuban Americans, he never supported normalization and hopes President Trump's message will resonate.
It's about real change, getting rid of political prisoners, legalizing the opposition, the labor unions. If not, we're going to keep on being a failed country. And it's very important that what we're trying to say.
While the US embargo against Cuba remains firmly in place, increased trade has been taking place, but it's something else the president will scale back, especially with Cuba's military.
The cruise lines are having a good day.
That worries some in the business world, but investor Thomas Hertzfeld remains confident that the president will prevail.
His business experience and his ability to negotiate, and also his policy, which is create jobs and business for American companies. I mean, it's right in line with what his objectives are.
Freedom for Cuba! The change in approach comes as no surprise. It was one of President Trump's campaign promises, and one he hopes will help a new generation of Cubans prosper. When President Obama announced the normalization process, it was hailed as one of his key foreign policies. But critics have been quick to point out the lack of concessions by the Cuban government, especially when it comes to human rights. And ultimately, it's conservative Cubans in this city that helped President Trump get elected. And they have high hopes that he'll now deliver on those promises. But as ever, the devil will be in the details. The new approach isn't a full reversal of Obama's historic normalization process, but it takes a much harder line. Its effect on tourism, trade, and ultimately relations between the US and Cuba will be closely watched by many here. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera, Miami, Florida.
Just a quick correction. That was from Al Jazeera English, not CNN.com. My apologies.
Yeah. What do you guys think? I don't know. I think it doesn't sound like it all hurt the airlines too much at all. But
airlines have already scaled back. Now, keep that in mind. Airlines have already scaled back, even before this, because it wasn't what they were thinking. JetBlue pulled out, I think, 3 to 4 flights a day from what they were originally, what they originally rolled out. There was this big race, almost like the space race, to get to Cuba, and it really was not what they were expecting.
It's like when they got there, they just realized that they all made the point that long-term demand would be there. But it's like now that they've gotten there, they're kind of thinking, well, maybe we were wrong about that. So let's take a step back and figure out how it's going to go.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how it ends up in the future, especially with, President Trump's, decisions going forward, regardless of politics. I mean, this is really going to be interesting for the airlines to see how this all plays out. So, I mean, any other thoughts on this, guys?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it'll have too much of an impact on the airline industry or the cruise industry for that matter. I really don't. I think I don't know if there's, from the forefront, as Parker wrote in one of his articles way back when, I think airlines honestly did jump the gun to Cuba. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the load factors are like on those flights. But
Parker, you went ahead and did some research on this, didn't you, for your article? So, what do you think happened initially?
Well, so for my first piece, I wrote an opinion. I think it was entitled Did airlines jump the gun on Cuba? In which I think I made it pretty clear that I thought they had. You were seeing that they were just suddenly flooding the market with thousands of seats that weren't there before, promising everybody that the demand would be there in the long run. But then really soon after, airlines were already scaling back. They were taking American, for example, took a couple flights that had been on, I believe it was A319, and moved them to regional aircraft just because they could hold the flights while still, putting in fewer seats. It was, and then a few months ago, we reached the point where airlines were even just flat out canceling because they couldn't keep up with, they had too much supply and not enough demand. My perspective was really just they got in too early, and I'm not sure if anybody really knew what anybody was getting into. Maybe they did, but if they did, I think in the beginning they did a poor job of implementing it all.
Yeah, it would appear that there was at least some ignorance or a level of ignorance from the U.S. airlines as to what they were getting themselves into. Absolutely, going into Cuba. They really thought that there was going to be this mass exodus of American citizens going and pouring all their money into Cuba, and it just really didn't turn out that way, either fortunately or unfortunately. We'll have to see how it goes in the future, but that's kind of the perspective that we're holding on this at this point.
For sure. Maybe it'll change. Maybe we'll see that. Maybe it'll come back, and the next decade, maybe longer. I mean, it's there's no way to tell though, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not our place to diagnose, exactly why, but it's happening. So,
For sure.
are the airlines losing money on this? We don't know, and the load factors aren't great. So, and we all know that load factors aren't everything when it comes to airline profitability, but it's a big part of it, because if you don't get the people on the airplanes, you're not getting them to the airport. If you're not getting to the airport, you're not being able to charge them baggage fees and the fees that come with being on the airplane of buying drinks and food and things like that. So it's a big part of it. So we'll see how it all plays out. So anyways, I think it's time to get to the main event of today's show, which is how to get an airline job. Now, a lot of you responded to our poll that we put out on our Twitter at Airline Podcast. Shameless plug. Please go follow us. And there was 256 of you who weighed in on this poll. And 9% of you said that you wanted to know how to become an airport customer service rep, so a ticketing agent, a gate agent, manager, things like that. 10% of you said that you wanted to work on the ground. You wanted to be a ramper or work on the ground in fleet service or baggage handling, marshaling the airplanes, pushing the planes out, fueling the airplanes, other things like that. 15% of you said that you wanted to know how to be a flight attendant. And a whopping 66% of you, of course, said you want to know how to be a pilot. So we're going to go through giving my experience, which is fairly limited, not really limited. I've had about 6 years airline experience, and I've done a lot of those jobs. But I wanted to give you some insight from someone who works, shameless plug, inside the airlines. We wanted to give you some insight.
Yes.
And Ryan, I know that you had done some work with American Airlines previously. And so you've been in the world. You know what it's like to work inside of an airline. And we wanted to give you some insight from all three of us exactly how to get involved with the airlines. Now, if there's one piece of advice, let's start with the smallest one. So the least amount of all 256 of you who voted wanted to be an airport customer service representative. Now, the best thing to do with any airline job, and I'll tell you this right now, is you need to be people focused. You need to be customer service minded. You got to know what it's like to be in the passenger's shoes. Parker, you fly a lot. Is that correct?
I mean, I think that's just how it has to be in any job where you're customer facing. I mean, it's just you have to be able to look at the customer and just what would they need if you're going to be great at your job. I mean, you have to be able to anticipate that kind of thing.
Yeah, any job. That's correct. I mean, it's pretty general, but I mean, you really got to start out thinking of the customer first. So that's rule number one. Rule number one before you do any airline job is think of the customer. So going into that, obviously, we talked about thinking of the customer. Now, the next thing is you need to think about your career as a whole. So the airline industry, I'll tell you this right now, is a great place to grow a career. Yes. There are so many options, so many things that you can do to get inside the airlines. There are so many things that you can do to be a part of the airline industry, whether it's pilot, ramper, customer service, flight attendant, and even behind the scenes in the corporate world, in the administrative side. You can work in finance, food and beverage, flight service. You can work in flight, communications. You can be analyst, cargo. There are so many different jobs, so many different positions, but that's just scratching the surface, right? So you can start on the airport side of things. It's not just the airport side of things. So most customers, they only see the airport side of things, and they think those are the only jobs I can do. I can only be a pilot. I can only be a flight attendant. But you could be a regional liaison where you work with airlines, regional airlines that are attached to the mainline carrier. You could work with them on how to be more like the mainline carrier so you can create a seamless product for our customers. You can do there are so many small scale jobs like that on a corporate level that people just don't even know. The behind the scenes of an airline is absolutely amazing. So we're going to start again, like we said, with airport customer service. The rule number one is you got to be customer service minded. Rule number two is you got to understand that an airline is a big picture kind of job. So thinking about the big picture, that is huge.
Yeah.
You know, you got to understand how an airline works. It's a cog. It's It's the way things work together, almost like a clock, right? Every little grinding gear that works together, everything has to come together perfectly for it to work. Every department. Okay. So if you understand those basic principles, you can go in and you can apply. And just like a retail job, you can apply. So these are entry level positions like airport customer service. You can go in and work with them. What is it like working as an airport customer service representative? Well, I did it for my first couple years. And I got to tell you, it's really not terrible. You get a lot of flack for the airline. So you take a lot of heat. Ryan, you worked kind of in the terminal side of things. Is that correct?
Yeah. I work for the airport authority and customer service. So
sure. So you saw a lot of the heat of when there's delays and things like that.
Yeah, I have to be a liaison between carrier X and the curbside, or but I have to be able to have a relationship with every carrier, so I can call them and say, hey, so and so left their suitcase in the overhead bin. Can you send somebody up to get it and bring it out to us? Then, of course, you get your share passengers that lose a family member in the terminal, need a page. And you also get a share of, just people coming up wondering what their flights are. And you got to be able to pull the flight information, let them know where to go, and, stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's all about that kind of customer service. It's all about leading people to where they need to go and things like that. So, you get inside this world and there's so many things that you can do within that. But moving on, there's some other areas that you might want to work in. So let's go to the next highest on our poll: ground, ramp, baggage handler. What's that like? So the majority of these entry-level positions, such as ramp, baggage handler, ground, things like that, it's really, to be honest, you guys, it's not that hard. It's as simple as just applying, putting yourself out there. But you got to understand when you do your interview that these are the things you got to understand, right? So it's the customer service facing no matter what, even on the ground when you're loading bags. It's customer service. And then number two, it's understanding that an airline is a big picture type of job. You got to understand the big picture without missing the important details. Everything counts. So what's it like to be a baggage handler? Well, I've done that as well. And, it's probably one of the coolest entry-level jobs in the airline.
And you got to make sure you know how to use the fuselage stretcher.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to that in just a second. But I'm telling you, working on the ground is great. You start out, you're pretty much just a baggage handler. You're loading bags into the airplanes. Not that hard. You're up in the belly. You're stacking bags. It's a lot of physical labor. But you got to learn all the safety equipment. You got to learn exactly what goes on with that. Some smaller airports, you got to learn how to dump the lavs. You got to learn how to hook up hoses and suck all the poop out of the airplane. I mean, there's a lot of good jobs that are involved with that. But like smaller stations, smaller airports, they have regional airlines that do everything, right? And that's where I started. So anyways, so you get to do all these things and like, it's just amazing what you get to experience. So working on the ground, you're not only baggage handling, but you're marshaling. So marshaling an aircraft, you're bringing it in. You're those guys with glow sticks, right, at night, and you're bringing the planes in. And I mean, like, there's no better feeling. I mean, it is just such a cool job. So those ones are pretty self-explanatory. But then now we're getting into where it's a little bit difficult, right? It gets a little bit harder. So how do I become a flight attendant? You ever wanted to learn how to be a flight attendant? Well, it's a long process. It's not as long as being a pilot, but it's a long process. So I'm currently a flight attendant. I do a lot of other stuff with my company, but I'm also, primarily a flight attendant. And you got to, once again, it all goes back to the ABCs of getting an airline job, right? A, making sure you understand customers always come first. B, understanding that it's a big picture type of operation. And C, knowing why you want to do it and having the passion for airlines and things like that. So remember those ABCs in any type of question that you're asked, and you're going to do well. There are so many resources out there, and we'll talk about this at the end as well, but there are so many resources out there. If you want to be a flight attendant or a pilot or a ramper or an airport customer service agent, there are so many, just get on the internet and do some search. And there are so many resources, so many Q&As, so many YouTubers, there are bloggers, there are, vloggers. There are people that go through. There's one off the top of my head. There's a girl named Jenny Ernst, Ernst, I believe it is. She has a YouTube channel, and she's great. She tells you everything you want to know about being a flight attendant, from bidding for your schedules to reserve. What is reserve like? So reserve is when you're on call. Usually your first couple of years as a flight attendant, you're on call. And what it's like sitting on call at home or at a base and not knowing where you're going to go, and then getting called out randomly to go to whether that be Little Rock, Arkansas, or Paris. You don't know what you're going to get called for. You know, you don't know what kind of pay you're going to get, or, you know, like there's so many what ifs. And those are the resources that you're definitely going to want to check out. But I want to spend a little time on the main focus here, and that's pilot. Now, Ryan and Parker, have you guys ever researched this or looked into what it takes to become an airline pilot?
Yes, and it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Parker, have you ever looked into it?
Yeah, I mean, I was on a flight with American earlier this week, and I mean, it was even in the American Way magazine. It's in the back of your seat pocket. I mean, let me tell you, the number of hours they're talking about him, it seems like it would be, first off, a lot of work, but I feel like it would be a lot of money too.
But it's worth it.
So obviously you need to think of the ABCs, right? We talked about it before. Customer service, big picture, and having a passion. So those are the ABCs. You keep that in mind, you're going to be okay. But that's amateur stuff. That's entry-level stuff. That's airport stuff, right? Not taken away from the amazing hard work that the men and women do on the front lines of the airline. Those are the real people that run the airline, by the way. You know, these guys are amazing, the people that work on the front lines. But being a pilot, right? Being an airline pilot in command of an aircraft, if you're captain or first officer, you know, and you're flying that airplane, you're flying all these people, you are flying around people from point A to point B as safely as possible. This is a huge responsibility. And it all starts with a discovery flight. Have you guys ever heard of a discovery flight?
Yes, I've done one.
Yeah, absolutely. So a discovery flight is usually like what, $100 these days? You spend $100, or if not less, and you go to your local airport. This is how you're going to get started to figure out whether or not you want to be a pilot.
Yeah.
Go to your local airport, take a discovery flight. It's anywhere between $50 and $100, if not free, if you get it for a gift. You go up in a little Cessna 150 with an instructor, and you fly around for an hour, and you decide whether or not you like it. If you love it.
But before you do that, you put the airplane on.
Yeah, absolutely. You turn it on. If you love it, though, then you realize, hey, I might want to do this. Now, the biggest rule of being a pilot is making sure that you love it. And here's why. If you don't love it, you're going to be in a world of hurt after a couple of years. And this is the reality. Because becoming an airline transport pilot in the United States of America can cost anywhere between $100,000 and $150,000, depending on how you do it. You can go to a college and spend about a little less than $100,000. You can go to one of those farms and spend like $60,000 to $75,000, and we'll get into what farms are. But you go to these schools and you spend so much money and so much time putting it into what it's like to be an airline pilot. And you go through the training and you get all your certificates and your ratings, and you end up with a lot of debt. Usually a lot of people end up with a lot of debt, and you start out making not great money. The average regional pilot as of today, now it's gotten a lot better, but the average regional pilot as of today starts anywhere between $25 and $40 an hour. It sounds like a lot of money, right? If you make $10, $15 an hour now, you're like, oh, it's good money. But you got to think about it this way. You're on call for the first year or so. You're really only getting 75 hours a month.
Yeah, if not less.
If not less, right? So you're guaranteed with your union contract like 7,500 hours a month at $27 an hour. It's really comparable tax purposes wise to $15 to $20 an hour, which really is not a lot of money when it comes down to it.
Yeah, some states that scrapes minimum wage.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of things that can contribute to that. But so that's the big over picture. So how do you do that? Like we said before, you go to your local airport, you get in your discovery flight, and you decide, hey, this is something I want to do. Well, now you got to take the next step. Now you got to get to an airport and you got to decide, hey, I want to become a private pilot. So private pilot is step number one. Becoming a private pilot takes, I think with the FAA right now, it's 40 to 45 hours, if I'm not mistaken. 40
sounds right.
Yeah, so 40 to 45 hours, maybe 45. I don't know. Somebody can cross-check me on that. But it's anywhere between, let's say 40 to 50 hours. Let's say 50 hours to be comfortable. You need 50 hours to be comfortable. Let's say each hour costs anywhere between $75 to $150 an hour, depending on the instructor. So you're spending upwards of, plus you got to add on your equipment, plus you got to add on your ground school. So ground school is where you figure out everything you need to do before you get in the airplane or while you're in the airplane. You figure out everything you need to be, all the airport markings, all the general knowledge, pilot knowledge. So after everything's said and done with private pilot, you're probably spending in US dollars anywhere between $6,500 and $10,000. And that's the cheap route, by the way, on become a private pilot. So this is the one option. This is through the civilian route. Now, you can also go through the military, and there's a lot of other great podcasts out there, and we'll link those in the description of how to go through the military route and things like that. And there's a lot of other great podcasts out there on how to go through the farms. Now, what's a farm? I keep calling it a farm. Well, it's a farm where you go in, you pay a lump sum of money via a loan or cash if you have $70,000 in cash laying around, and you throw it at these people, and within 6 months to a year, you walk out of there with your highest airline transport rating. Not a ton of hours, but you got enough hours to get those ratings, and then you can go in and apply for a regional or be an instructor. So those are the three options, really: military, farm, or civilian. Civilian ends up being the cheapest, and that's why we're talking about civilian today. So you go through your private pilot license, and it's like anywhere between $6,500 and $10,000. Then you've got to get your instrument rating. That's the next step. So instrument rating is so you can fly. Private pilot licenses, you're not flying for hire, you're flying for fun, and you can only have a certain amount of people in your airplane, and you can only fly on basically sunny days and clear nights. Now you want to be able to fly when there's weather. You want to be able to fly in the clouds. You want to be able to fly safely into airports using the instrument landing system, and you want to be able to get clearances and fly at the high altitudes and things like that. That's where you're going to need your instrument rating. So your instrument rating comes next. That's another $65 to anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 depending. So after your instrument rating comes your multi-engine rating. You need to learn how to fly more than one engine. Following your multi-engine, then you're going to need your certified flight instructor. Following your certified flight instructor, you're going to need your certified CFII, so your instrument certified. So you need to be a flight instructor for not only regular, but you need to be a flight instructor for the instruments. Then you need to become a multi-engine certified flight instructor. Then finally, eventually, after all of that, you can become an airline transport pilot. Commercial, there's a commercial in there as well, excuse me. So you got to get I'm even forgetting some of these. I don't have any notes in front of me, but there's so many things that you have to do between private, commercial, airline transport, CFI, CFII, multi-engine. These are all the certificates, all the ratings you need to get. Once everything is said and done with, you're going to need hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
I think it just goes to show how passionate all of our pilots are.
Exactly. And that's the point we're getting at. It's like you have to be so passionate about this job. Now, a lot of pilots, they started in the military, they got their grants and they were able to go through, or they went through a farm and only spent $70,000. But on top of this, by the way, I may have or may not have forgotten to mention that if you really want to fly for an airline, you're going to need your degree. You got to have some sort of degree. Now, there's some pilots that have squeaked by without it, but a lot of airlines such as Delta, American, and I think United, the three major legacy, like American carriers. Excuse me, legacy American carriers require some sort of bachelor's degree or college degree to get on top of that. So now I say all of this, and I'm not an expert. The farthest I've gone is through private, and we'll have a pilot, able to go through with us. We'll interview a pilot for this show, but I say all of this to tell you that it is a long, drawn out, expensive, complicated, exhausting,
hair-pulling
process. This is not to deter you, but this is to put you into overdrive, to say that if you're listening to Inside the Airlines on June 18th or any other subsequent date, and you think you want to be an airline pilot, this is what you're going to have to go through. And you're going to start out at low pay, probably at the regionals. You may be able to get into a mainline character. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with you today? You may be able to get into an airline, mainline carrier. and start making good money. But you got to understand what the process is like to go through it, because it's only the most passionate, driven, motivated people that get this job.
Yeah.
It brings a whole level of respect to our pilots, to those that served into the military, to those and things like that. I mean, just listening to this process is exhausting. It really, really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, listen to him yawning.
Ryan yawns over there.
Yeah, I've always believed that one of the best foots at the door in this business is a flight attendant, because it shows that you can work your butt off and get up at the ass crack of dawn, excuse my French, and push the cart down the aisle, serve the food. And I know, Tyler, you can attest to this. And I've long believed that I know a lot of people who started as flight attendants are now very senior airline employees. I know a few executives that have started as flight attendants and are now obviously senior executives at major U.S. carriers. And it's one of the best foots in the door, because it shows the carriers that you can really get to work. Some flight attendants have been doing it for 35 years. I know Tyler has a special name for those, but we won't say it. And I don't know. I think it's really interesting. I think if you really want to become a pilot, the best way to do that is to become a flight attendant or become a ground staff and use that salary to help you train to become a pilot. But then you already get your non-rev benefits. You already get your seniority. You already get your foot in the door of the airline. And when you apply to become a pilot, maybe in a couple years, you could apply and you could say, well, I have this under my belt. I have this job. I've moved to supervisor. And, I've been with the company for XX amount of time. And that could be a selling point. That might get you a right seat, on a mainline carrier, because flying for the regionals, it's tough. You like Tyler said, you're getting paid close to minimum wage, and you might be sitting in a crash pad in Syracuse, New York, and it's rough. But if you have passion for it, you get it done, and you just hope you could be upgraded to the regionals in a few years, or the mainline carriers, in a few years.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting though in the U.S. This process, how weird it is, because in other countries, like Europe or Asia, you really don't see this. You see pilots are pretty much able, and a lot of them are military, granted, but hop right in. I know one of our guys on our team, he flies for a low-cost carrier in Europe, and he did one of the farm schools in New Zealand, and then he flew back, and he is, an FO for one of the major low-cost carriers in Europe, and he's flying Airbus aircraft, and he couldn't be happier. He just posted a photo the other day. He flew his parents around to London, so he couldn't be happier.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many options. I mean, we could talk about this all night long, all the different options that are involved with working for an airline. And it's been the most life-changing experience for me, just the past 6 years. I mean, I've grown up with the airlines. My dad has worked for this airline that I work for over 30 years. And I've just grown up with this airline, and I've learned, like I said before, I've just learned so much. So if you're really interested in an airline job, feel free to reach out to myself at Tyler Herrick on Twitter or at Airline Podcast, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. I mean, just give you some pointers and some tips and things like that and how to get involved. There's also so many other great resources too. So many good podcasts that I listen to. The Aviation Careers Podcast is a great podcast that goes through, and every week they just talk about what it's like to be an airline pilot or to work in aviation, whether that be general aviation or an airline, what it's like to work in an airline job, flight attendant, pilot, things like that. So there's just so many good resources out there. The internet is your friend. YouTube is your friend. There's great ground schools. There's online ground schools. I went to, this is a free non-advertised plug here, but I went to M0A Aviation Ground School, and that's where I was able to get, my ground school certification. And it's just great. It was online. I did everything online. I took my notes, and then you take your written exam, and then you do everything else in the airplane. And it was such an easy process to go through and get that pilot certificate. So I'm telling you, it's just the way to go. And there's just so many good options, man. I can't even tell you. Like, as a flight attendant, I'm doing 3 different jobs right now at my company, and I'm only a flight attendant. You know, I'm a flight attendant. I fly part-time. I work in the training department. I help them out with, technical systems training for our flight attendants. And then on top of that, I do social media, internal social media for my airline. So I do so many different things, and I'm just a flight attendant. There's just so many options and so many different, it's just, I would recommend this job to anyone. I would never tell somebody that this is not a great job, whether you're anywhere from ramper to pilot. This is such a great job, and I just couldn't recommend it more. I mean, and you can't beat the free travel. Let me tell you, you can't beat free first class. Maybe standby, but the non-rev benefits are just amazing. It's such a great job, and of course it has its ups and downs like every other career, but I tell you what, you guys check in with me in 30 years while this podcast is still going, and I'll be there.
You never know too. And then kind of the common conception of society, it's always funny when you say, you work for the airlines, or you want to work for the airlines, or, in my case, you want to major in aviation or airline management. A lot of people are like, oh, you want to be a pilot. And that's what everybody kind of assumes, that the only career in this business is pilot. Well, pilots wouldn't be able to fly without ground staff, above wing staff, flight attendants, operation people that sit in the tower, people that sit in the operations center. So there's a lot more than that. Don't let that discourage you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And don't forget to reach out to us. I mean, once again, at Airline Podcast, if you have any questions or anything like that, we'll be happy to answer them for you. But Ryan and Parker, I've been talking for the past 17 minutes, and I want to shut up for a little bit. Will you guys please tell us what's going on with the most amazing event in the history of events? This is the greatest, most bigly, most huge event. I mean, we're talking the event to break all events. We are talking about Aviation Day 2017.
You bet. Well, tickets went today on June 18th, Sunday, June 18th, for those of you listening at a later date. Nice.
Thanks for the sound effects over there.
Yes, our DJ. They went. London's, just as a reference point, went in about 2 minutes.
Hold on. Let's give them some context here. What is Aviation Day?
Okay. All right. Here we go. Aviation Day is a collaboration between airlinegeeks.com and American Airlines. And what we do is we kind of show people behind the scenes look at the airline industry and what the world of airline operations is like. Giving you a perspective, whether it be inside a GE90 engine maintenance facility, or let you spend some time with a few pilots, flight attendants, ground staff, etc., or maintenance people who are also really cool. And I know we have some fun stuff planned for that this year. But anyways, so National Aviation Day this year falls on August 19th, as it does every year, and that was proclaimed.
Is that I don't know.
I don't know, but by Roosevelt, and he made it at Wilbur Wright's birthday, and around, I think, of 1939, and that's National Aviation Day. But this year we're celebrating on the eve of National Aviation Day because it's a lot easier to do it on the day before. It's just a Friday, so it's a work day, and operationally it's much easier than a Saturday. Last year we did it on the actual day, but yeah. So what we do is we open up. American is nice enough to open up most of their, I think all of their hubs, and then a few other places like headquarters, the Integrated Operations Center, London, Paris, JFK, LaGuardia, which actually aren't considered hubs. For those of you that aren't too familiar, those are considered gateways. But it's an awesome look, what really goes on and what makes this business so great. And as you guys know, I'm a big advocate for the airline industry. I'll defend it for night and day. But I honestly think this is one of the best ways to see what really goes on and the passionate people that make it work. And, this is real stuff. This isn't, we're staging people, or we're, staging some mechanics that are dressed up in, their best uniform. No, you're walking through, for example, the Tulsa maintenance base. You're walking through, you're checking out the base, and you're going to have mechanics doing their work, and you're going to be able to see it firsthand. And that's really what we want to see. We want to inspire people to work in the industry, for those that are younger, But we also want to show, especially now more than ever, this industry is getting such bad heat from the news media and social media, the court of social media, as they called it. I think it's a perfect time to really see what makes it run, what makes this industry so cool. As I say, 30,000 feet, 500 miles per hour in a metal tube. It's so unique. But yeah, so the tickets went today. Most of them are, well, really all of them are gone at this point. Except Paris. Now we're still working on that. That's why we didn't put it out today, because we don't really have everything confirmed for it yet. So we're still planning that. So that'll come later. They'll be offering around 4 or 5 spots. So if you can get a spot, that's really cool. What are some other things about Aviation Day that we could talk about? Well, the spots went for most of the hubs. We had a technical glitch. I told you guys earlier. I warned the host. They didn't keep the site up, but
it's nice to see. It's just nice to see we had so much demand. I mean,
yeah, that's true, and I know it really is hard for people that really did want to go, and we really do apologize if you weren't able to make it on this list, or even I know there are a few people that didn't make it last year either, or this year. But my best advice, and I really do stress this, I'm not just trying to get you off our backs, is to join the wait list, because last year a lot of people had some good luck on the wait list, and you even if you're towards the bottom, we had some people make it, because some hubs will open up 5 or 10 more spots as we get closer. Some people will have 2 tickets. It was a husband and wife, or a family, and they drop both of them, and it opens up 2 spots. Or people will move around. Some people will get a wait list spot at the hub they really initially wanted, and then it'll open it up there. So there's so much fluctuation room. I really, really, really can't stress this enough. Get on the wait list. Some of the wait lists have reached maximum capacity, but if you email us at aviationday@airlinegeeks.com, we can add you manually to these lists.
What information should we send to that email?
Just send your first name and your email address, and then I just copy paste it over. It's pretty easy.
Perfect. And one more time, what is that email?
aviationday@airlinegeeks.com.
So aviationday@airlinegeeks.com. Make sure you send your information there if you want to join our wait list. And big shout out to our chat room. They're Mr. Greg and Reggie. Hey, Reggie Dixon, welcome to the party. We got Greg Linton, we got JPF, and we got Marvin Washington. Thanks, you guys. We appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out in our chat room. They wanted us to give a shout out, so we're just doing that real quick.
But yeah, they went quick, and the tickets did go quick, and I really hope that we can open up a few more spots, some locations, and I think we will. We did last year. So don't get your head too deep in the dust. If you didn't get a spot, don't be too depressed about it. If you're on the wait list,
And Reggie says in the chat room that he got a spot on the wait list. So it's possible, people. It's possible.
Yeah, there's hope. I promise. I wouldn't just say that. I really do think there's hope. And there's such high demand. And next year we are going to work on a way to maybe do it a little better. Because it is hard. I mean, we're shuffling 15 locations, and we have different things for each one, and we have to figure out a way to do it right. And it is a very hair pulling, and not to mention they're all free. So of course nobody has to put in a credit card information or anything. So it really is a quick process, and that's something we really do pride ourselves on. Is for them to be free. And
that's a big part of it too. A lot of people need to hear this, that it is a logistical nightmare to get a part of this day. Just as a person with security procedures, just the logistics of it all. It's a lot of work, and these guys, Ryan and the entire airlinegeeks.com, are working around the clock to make sure that this day happens. So we really, really appreciate y'all's patience and your understanding with this. If you didn't get a slot this year, we definitely look forward for you to be on the wait list, and we definitely look forward to possibly seeing you next year if you don't make it this time around. But don't be disappointed. There'll be more from it, and there'll be lots of coverage too on social media and with video and audio coverage of this. I know we're going to try and do some live podcasting and things like that at possibly the C.R. Smith Museum or anything like that. But Parker and I will be in Dallas, and I'll be there in uniform for part of the extravaganza at the Flight Attendant Training Center. So we look forward to seeing all of you wherever you may end up at Aviation Day 2017.
Yeah, I second that. I think it'll be an awesome day of 2 ways. And if you don't get a spot, the wait list, hey, you might know as soon as 3 days before. That's what happened last year. So again, don't get too deep in the depths. There's hope.
There is hope. The night is always darkest before the dawn.
That is, yes.
So anyways, you guys, we got about less than 5 minutes left of today's episode. Thank you so much for we've got a ton of new listeners this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Inside the Airlines. We talk about trending airline news stories. We usually have great interviews. We've got some awesome episodes coming up for you guys. We're going to be interviewing a dispatcher. We've got cabin interiors, IFE. Go back and check out our previous episodes. We're on iTunes. We're on SoundCloud. We usually upload to SoundCloud before anything. So check out our SoundCloud. And of course, you can check out our YouTube channel. If you're listening on our YouTube channel right now live, make sure you are subscribed. Like and comment, of course, and we appreciate that. So Inside the Airlines, we do trending news stories, interviews, and lots of fun stuff, and give you an inside perspective and an in-depth look what it's like inside the airlines. My name is Tyler, and I am roasting alive here in the Phoenix Valley, Arizona area.
And I'm Ryan, and I'm here in Washington suffering from a condition called politics.
And I'm Parker, and I'm down here in Dallas. Perfectly fine.
And we thank you guys once again. Check us out on our social media at Airline Podcast, of course, at Airline Geeks and airlinegeeks.com. Brought to you by airlinegeeks.com. This has been another awesome episode of Inside the Airlines. Thank you for those who joined the chat room, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon. Have a great night, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. And make sure you follow us on Twitter at Airline Podcast to find out when we will be live next. Have a great night, everybody.
American 1027 is on the visual.
American 1027 on the tower, wind 250 at 17, depth 23, flying an Airbus 3 mile final, runway 18 right, clear to land.
Clear to land 18 right, American 1027.